Good morning, everybody. Good early Sunday morning to everybody. This is Robin from Roaming with Rover. I am so happy that you are here with us today. And I know that some of you have to wade through commercials before this thing starts. So I'm just going to jibber jabber for a moment or two and give you a chance to get through that before we start talking about stuff. And Miss Mary is here. Yay, Miss Mary. We can blame Miss Mary for all of this. She's the one that reminded me that I said I was going to do this because I had kind of sort of forgotten about it all. Now this thing just popped up on here, so I think that it is live now. I always like to see what it looks like for everybody on my second screen. There we go. Get the chat, all messages. Awesome. Okay. All right. Welcome in. Welcome. This is the KAL, KAL. This is a knit along. I know. Makes no sense whatsoever. Why is Robin doing a knit along? Hello, Kai. Okay, now this is going to be a problem. Hello, Suzanne. I need both of my glasses. This is going to be a problem when we get to the actual physical knitting part. I'm going to need my regular glasses for my knitting, and I'm going to need my reading glasses to see the screen. I might have to read off of my phone. We will figure that out. All right, let's do this for now. Okay, now I can see you guys. Let's, in fact, that might work. Let's try that for a minute. Let's try this for a minute. Okay. How is everybody this morning? I think this is going to be, hello, Suzanne. I think this is going to be a situation where we're going to have more people on the replays than I typically expect. It always surprises me when anybody watches a replay of anything. But in this particular situation, there. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. I don't want it to look like I'm not looking at you guys as I'm reading over here. So this kind of looks, this doesn't look, how's that? That looks like I'm looking at you both, right? That doesn't look like I'm looking away. I've gotten my hand slapped before by people that said I'm not paying attention to you guys because I'm over here looking at this. But this is how I can read what's going on. Okay. I think that looks all right. Hello, Donna. Thank you so much for joining in. So today's video is a literal overview of everything that's going to happen. We're going to talk about some things. We're going to make some decisions about some things, and really just talk about how stuff is going to work. I am super excited about this. I'm also nervous. I'm really nervous about this. I did a crochet along last year, but everything was pre-recorded. Yeah, pre-recorded. It was a lovely, in fact, this, and I get a lot of compliments about this blanket, and this blanket is actually a shawl that I made from the leftover yarn from last year's crochet along. And the crochet along last year was from Ophelia Talks, and it was her Lizzie blanket. And this is the actual pattern from the Lizzie blanket, and it's just smaller. And I made a shawl from the leftovers from the Lizzie blanket. And I think it's funny. I do get a lot of compliments about this from folks when they see it in my videos. Good morning, Miss Cheryl. And so when I did that crochet along, of course it was done a little bit differently because it was somebody else's pattern, which of course this one is too. And it was broken down week to week like this one will be. And what I did was each week I did my knitting or my crocheting, and then I showed what I had done. Well, this one is different because I'm going to be doing my knitting along with you guys and following along and learning each step of the pattern along with you. I am a very beginner, very baby knitter. Very baby. I can knit, I can purl. I've done a couple of very simple baby blankets. You know, I've used that bloom yarn. I love that bloom yarn where it makes beautiful design for you. So, and that is stockingette, garter, stockingette, where you're knit a row, purl a row, knit a row, purl a row, back and forth. Did that. And I've done a couple of washcloths, which I love to do because you can knit, purl, and in the process of doing it, you make a design in it. So, I mean, really, really simple things. So when I ran across this pattern and I talked about it in bingo one evening, or probably a couple of evenings, and it caught the attention of a few of you lovely ladies, including Miss Mary. Some of you said it sounded like fun. Well, that's all I needed to jump on it. So we decided to do this thing. And then I had kind of forgotten about it. And Miss Mary reminded me that we had decided to do this thing. So here we are. So let's talk about the process of this pattern, this blanket, and why we decided that this would be a good pattern to do. Oh, thank you, Cheryl. Oh, that's true. Yeah, but they didn't turn out that great. As Cheryl's reminded me, in fact, I've got it right here. Cheryl reminded me that I also knitted these. This is a stranded colorwork hat. Connie over at Just Another Stitch, for some reason, she keeps inviting me to test knit her patterns because she likes new knitters, because it's important when you're writing a pattern that even a new knitter can understand it. So she has me, because I can read a chart. I can knit, I can purl, I can read a chart. I know how to do the ribbing, and they're so darn cute. Her patterns are so darn cute. But with stranded knitting, and I'm sure all of you guys, you know, you carry your yarn with you in the back. Well, it was fine for this part. It was a little trickier when we got up to the truck. That part didn't work out so well. And as you can see, I'm still having problems with my tensioning. So that part, I'm still trying to figure that out. But I can carry the yarn, and I've worked with 3 colors of yarn. And I actually do have another project over there where I'm working with 2 colors of yarn at the same time, and you knit with this color and this color and this color and this color, and it's really turning out nice. I'm really pleased with that one. But because it's not the stranded where I'm not carrying the yarn with me, I'm using both yarns at the same time. It's just this stranded, and I'm going to figure this out. I have signed up for some knitting lessons, and this is one of the things that I want to learn, how to figure out what I'm doing wrong. So I'm not afraid to learn. This is, you know, everybody makes, not everybody, but people make resolutions. And my thing, I don't make resolutions, but I make goals. And one of my goals for this year is really to learn lots of new things. And Cheryl and I have, poor Cheryl, every time I decide I want to learn something, Miss Cheryl ends up figuring it out for me because I get stuck. Good morning, Paula. So before we get too far, I would like if you guys would just give me a rough idea. I don't want to say how good of a knitter are you, but you know, what kind of a knitter do you consider yourself? Are you a sock knitter? Are you a baby knitter? Have you been knitting your whole life? Is knitting second nature? Can you pick up and knit anything? Are you a washcloth knitter? Just give me a rough idea what kind of knitting do you do? What are you comfortable with? What's your knitting level? And I'll have some coffee here. I know it's the middle of the night for Cheryl. She's such a trooper for these things. Paula's a beginner. So what kind of things have you knit? Oh, dear Lord, cables and blankets. Oh, I forgot. I made 100 years ago, my niece, who is a grown-up mama now. Okay, brand new beginner. Good, this is perfect for you. I knit a baby outfit. I knit a baby, must have been a sweater, because it had a cable on it. And at that time, I was also a left-handed knitter. And that's when I learned that patterns, when you're a left-handed knitter, patterns turn out backwards, because the cable was supposed to be on one side. It ended up on the other side. Yeah. Okay, so you literally, Paula, have just learned you can do knits and purls. Good morning, Miss Amber. I asked Miss Amber to join in because I was afraid nobody was going to show up this morning. Okay, Mary has done mug rugs. Oh, interesting, knitting a mug rug. You've knit socks. That's right. I remember you showed me the socks. Yes. Suzanne's an intermediate knitter, different stitches, following patterns. Gauge. Okay, so you're a loose knitter. I knit so tight that the knitting instructor couldn't even get the needle into the stitch. So I've been really practicing loosening up my knitting. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Following patterns. Okay. Knitting 55 years, not quite advanced. I understand that, Cheryl. Okay, good. Adventurous beginner. Oh, gonna start a cardigan. Nice, 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 nice. Okay, so it looks like we've got a big range of abilities here, which is good, because I think we're gonna need to bounce off of each other. So let's talk about the process here. I ran across this. I don't even know how I found it, because she's not a big YouTuber. The gal's name is the Underground Crafter. Oh, Karen does not knit at all, so she's just going to be following along and visiting with us. Small projects, gratification, good, Suzanne. Then I think you'll like these, because it's just a bunch of small squares. Mateo's beginner dish rags. If you can make a dish rag, you can do this, because this is basically a bunch of small dish rags. Okay. I think I must have run across her from her blogs, because she has a few YouTubes, but very few, and mostly she's real prolific with her blogs. So, and I couldn't even tell you how I came across I came across this actual pattern, but when I did, it just spoke to me. I have been wanting to do a, oh my Lord, you know how I stumble on my words sometimes. I have been wanting to do a where you do all the different kinds of things, all the different kinds of patterns into a knit blanket for a lot of years. I can remember many years ago, I had a pattern leaflet from Leisure Arts. Remember, we used to buy those leaflets. Thank you, Sampler, from Leisure Arts, and it was a sampler. I had a sampler crochet one, and I had a sampler of a knit one. And I carried that thing around. I probably still have it out in the garage somewhere, honestly. And it was just so pretty. And I loved the colors in it. It was green and beige and blue, the colors in that blanket. And of course I never did it, but I always was going to. So when this thing popped up, it just really spoke to me. And you guys know that I don't like blocks. And I had bought that darn Annie's kit, the sampler blanket kit, and I got 3 rows done on it, which you guys saw in my whip video. And I made a mistake in the first one. And the first one was literally the stockinette stitch back and forth. But I did a yarn over. Somebody explained to me that it was, I hadn't put a hole in it. I had done a yarn over, and that creates a hole. And, you know, here I am three stripes into that thing, and that yarn over is eating at me. So I know minimally I'm going to want to tear it out and start it over because of that yarn over. So yes, for those of you who are wondering, I have decided to tear that out because that yarn over is just eating at me. So I found this thing and I'm reading about it, and I thought, I don't like squares. Well, then I started reading the thing and I'm like, oh, we're going to put these squares together one at a time. That's going to take care of the problem of doing all these darn squares, then having a stack of squares at the end. And that is one of the problems for me with squares. That's what happened when I did with my temperature blanket. That's what happens with anything I ever do where you've got squares, is I finish it up and then I got this big old stack of squares. Part of the process with this pattern, with this blanket, and this isn't going to be a huge blanket. It's a nice size throw, which is another thing that's good. You know, these are 6x6 squares, so this isn't going to be huge. Is we're going to do the square, we're going to block it, we're going to attach it to the square from the week before, we're going to weave in one end, and we're done. And then we move on to the next one. So when we're done at the end of this process, we've got a blanket that's finished, that it's ready to do a border. So that's the other thing that really appealed to me about this process. So, and if we get new people interested, they can jump in at any time. Now, it just happened that the lady, and I don't remember her name. I've seen it other places. Katie, I think, I don't know. But she did this in 2016. She does a knit along every year, and it starts at the beginning of the year. And so this is her 2016 knit along. And so I was looking back at it, and I was looking at the different things, and this one, at least the first several weeks, looked very easy. I mean, very easy. And I printed out the patterns for the first few weeks, and it's a matter of, okay, this week is a stockinette stitch. Next week, and I'm just saying these things. Next week is knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl. The next week is knit 2, purl 1, knit 2, purl 1. So it's very, very simple. They get harder. They definitely get harder. And so it's going to get to a point where we're going to have to really be paying attention and maybe looking things up for those of us that are very, very beginners, and getting help on the ones down the road. But they are beautiful. They really are pretty. Okay, so at the very top of this, I have linked to her blog post about this. Has everybody had a chance to go and look at her blog and see how this is set up and ready to go? Let me just go over a few things, a few notes, and it's the same notes that I talked about in the other video, just some real basic stuff. We're going to start the actual pattern next Sunday. Talked to a few different people that responded to the comments and that have talked to me on other lives and things, and we landed on this time frame. Thank you, Cheryl. We landed on this time frame for the live. It's 7 a.m. for me. I know for Miss Cheryl it's some ridiculous middle of the night time, and all over the spectrum for the rest of you guys. I anticipate we're going to have a lot of people rewatching the live on this one, and I am so thankful, and I very, very welcome you guys in. And I was thinking, oh, it's 1 a.m. for Cheryl. Dear Lord, I don't know why you do this. I don't know why you do these things, Cheryl, but I so appreciate it. Cheryl is a godsend to me. We're making a 6-inch. We're making a 6-inch square, and each week I'm going to be knitting this square during the live. I will already have my border done because each week, in addition to having this pretty block, we knit a pretty little border. That's the other thing I liked about this is you have this few rows of a border, and that's just a garter stitch. Listen to me, and that's just knit, purl, knit. No, knit, 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 knit is garter, and stockinette is knit, purl, knit, purl. I'm going to remember that before we're done. So you start with a nice little border all the way around. So you have this real pretty finished looking block for each one of them. Now, I did go and look at her Ravelry page, and she had a comment section. And there was a lot of pictures. And I noticed on several of them, the working blocks were very hourglass shaped. And so, but after they were blocked, they looked very nice. So during the knitting process, don't be surprised if yours get sucked in quite a bit. And that's why they need to be blocked before we sew them together. Okay. And I noticed that on a lot of them. So don't be surprised about that. And I'm glad I saw that because that would have bothered me. But so we start out with this very pretty little edge. So we're only doing a 6-inch square. I thought I would get this done in about an hour. I was very wrong. Very wrong. It definitely takes me a lot longer than that. Assemble as we go, weave as we go, finish with the border. The original pattern is 3 colors. You can do anything you want. Have you guys picked your colors already? Have you picked your yarns and your colors? And has anybody started your intro block? You're going to use, oh, that'll be beautiful. Now, Paula, that's going to be a little smallish in the Stylecraft. You'll have to knit more rows to get your 6 inches because this is a 4-weight. Now, and you guys have seen mine. Mine's a 4-weight, but the Stylecraft will be really nice. And you guys, I'm just using the Hirschner's Worsted 8. It's called Antiquity, but that's just kind of their color palette. And I was so funny. I was thinking, because I've got 3 colors, I'll do 10 of each. Well, then I'm not going to be able to do my hooking together. So I'll have to do 1 color each week in order to hook it together. So this was my first one. I'm curious to see what your guys' you've got your yarns, but you haven't sorted it out yet. Okay. Got your colors. You do not have to do this first block. This first stockinette stitch. This is just to get a feel. Hello, Samantha. This is just to get a feel for your yarn, to see how your yarn works up, to get your gauge figured out. Basically, this is a gauge block. Which for me was super important with this because I do knit very tight and I wanted to get a feel for how long this was going to take. I wanted to get a feel for what it was going to look like. I also figured out, so like I mentioned before, I was a left-handed knitter and it caused a lot of problems. So when I took that sock class last year that I failed miserably in, on the last week of sock class, I decided I need to learn how to knit right-handed. This is just not working well. So I sat for a few minutes and I watched the lady knit, the teacher, who 4 weeks in realized I was knitting left-handed. And that's why I couldn't figure anything out. And so I taught myself how to knit right-handed. So I'm doing this, and I got to about right here. Well, here. I got about this far, and I realized I was doing it left-handed. So I had to slap myself and switch over. It was fine. but I really have to think about it because I've done it left-handed for so long. I really have to think about doing it right-handed. So I have to hold the finished. Tell me if I'm doing this right. The finished, Cheryl, the finished stuff is I'm holding in my right hand, correct? So let's see, I can't even remember now. I'm so used to doing it the other way. Yes, you're definitely going to have to, okay, so this would be right-handed. If you're going to use DK, you're going to have smaller squares, or you're going to have to cast on more stitches. So this is the right way to hold it. Correct, Cheryl? Yeah. Okay. I really have to think about that. And I'm in the middle of another project that I'm having to convert to right-handed. And I really have to think about it. So now when I started this, I always use cable needles when I can, because I'm just more comfortable using cable needles than straight needles. You can use either or. It doesn't matter. I'm just used to using cable needles. It's easier for me, and I'm less likely to drop my whole project off of cable needles than I am with straight needles. And when I started, I had much smaller, I had a 12-inch. I had a much smaller cable needle, and so I had to switch it to a longer cable. So if you're going to use a cable needle, you're going to want one that's a little bit longer. And I couldn't even tell you how long this is. It's probably a 20-inch cable. I'm using the 4.5 millimeter, the 7-inch millimeter. Mary was so funny. She kept saying the 4.5, and I kept going, no, it's a 7. 7 US, 4.5 mil. But you use whatever size you want that works with your yarn. And it doesn't matter. I mean, it's not like we're making a sweater. You use what works for your yarn, what works for your gauge, what works for you. As long as you make a square. That's what's important, is that it makes a square. And even then, it doesn't even have to be exactly a square. It just has to, your sides have to match up so that when you sew them together, they just have to be the same length from item to item, really and truly. That's the important part on this. And so, yes, same size needle throughout the whole project. Just like in crochet, you don't want to be switching needles midstream. The same weight of yarn. This is something I would not mess around with, using mixing yarns. Some people do. Some people have no problem with that. Because we're making all different kinds of stitches, this is something I would never switch yarns around. Those of you who know what you're doing, awesome. It looks like there's a lot of baby knitters in here like me. I don't think this is probably the project to be mixing yarns with. Would you agree, Mary and Cheryl? Do you think that's probably a good call on that? I mean, I always worry about that, even when I know what I'm doing on a crochet project. I always worry about my weights of yarn. Even, brand to brand with the same weight will work up differently. And something that Cheryl pointed out to me when I was picking yarns, and I know this, yes, unless you're going to swatch every one, you don't want to be mixing your yarns. That's a good point. When you're picking your yarns, you don't want to, and you can see this if you go to her Ravelry page. If you go to the Ravelry page, there's a whole bunch of pictures to look at, and that can give you an idea for how different colors are going to look. Some people did one color, and that's fine. Some people did two, kind of a checkerboard looking, and that's fine. Again, I just pulled this out of my stash. I had a package. It was a fall package mix. You know, you guys know me. I'm color challenged. I cannot pick colors. But this had a beautiful ombre. And Cheryl reminded me that the stitch work is not going to show up in an ombre. And I'm like, oh, that's right. So this is going to be my border. And also, you want to be careful about picking up super dark colors. There were some really dark greens and some blacks that people were using. You can't see the stitch work at all in those. And they're also, if you're a baby knitter like me, it's hard to see your work while you're working with it as well. So that's something to think about while you're choosing your yarns also. So what I plan on doing each week when I come on, I will already have my border done and possibly a few rows in pattern done so that we can talk about the pattern and do some actual knitting on camera for you. I can't knit and talk as well as I can with my crochet. I have to pay a little more attention. But that is my goal, is to be working on this while we're on camera each week. I'm also planning on keeping this no more than an hour each week, especially for the replay people. Now, if we get to the point where we want to do just sort of a sit and knit kind of a thing, we can talk about that also. Let's see here. Let me talk about this. She's got a real good, oh, that's right. I lied. I said that I had pinned at the top of this. I said I had pinned the link to her thing. I did not. What I pinned was a link to a cast off, because not only can I never remember how to do a cast on, I can never remember how to do a cast off. And she, in her pattern, suggested a link to, and I think it's Little Pink Knits. I could be wrong, but I put a link in the top of this to a cast off video and it's a cast off in pattern, which I didn't exactly know what that meant, but she often, in her instructions, she will often do a link to a how-to. And so anytime there is a link to a how-to, I will pin that to the top of each week's video, so it's there ahead of time. Is it though? Is it there ahead of time? I think it is. It should be there ahead of time before the video plays. And I'll also link it down in the description box. You won't need to cast off in pattern for these squares. Okay. Well, but it'll still be a pattern, right? Because we're doing, the border is, it's still a knit. So you'd still need to know how to cast off knit-wise, right, Cheryl? Minimally, it'll teach us how to do that. So if we're casting off knit-wise, it'll teach us how to cast off, because I don't remember how to cast off. So for us baby knitters, we'll learn how to cast off. Oh, okay. So I will find another cast off. I will find another Yes, Paul, I think that'd be a better idea for you on this one. I'll find another cast off video and I'll pin it to the next video for the week 1 video. I will find a better cast off pattern, cast off video. Also, I will find she is suggesting a long tail cast on, which is a very basic cast on. I did not use it, and I'll tell you why. I always struggle with way too much yarn when I do the cast on. And I know there's a million different little tricks, the wrapping around. Plus, I'm such a tight caster oner, a tight knitter. I have found if I use the knit cast on. So when it looks like a knit stitch when I've done my cast on. I don't know. I don't know that it's any better or worse, or it's just the one that I use. Yeah. Okay. A simple basic cast off is all you need. Thank you, Cheryl. Cheryl, what kind of a cast on do you like? And even with my knit cast on, I literally had to go to 4 different videos to find one that was slow enough for me to see. I don't remember which one I even ended up watching. There was 3 or 4 of them that I didn't like. And I finally found one and saved it. Oh, a crochet cast on. I've never heard of that. How interesting. So now where would we find how to do that? Is that a basic cast on? You know, I did on Amazon, there was a book of cast-ons, and I almost bought that. Because the funny thing about cast-ons is back in the day, the only thing I'd ever heard of was the long tail cast-on. But I have since learned that there's different cast-ons for different things. There's stretchier cast-ons and cast-ons for different edging, for your edges to look different. And I was watching Linda Simpson one day, and she did the knit cast-on. And she said that's the cast-on her father taught her, and she uses that for everything. And I really liked the way it looked. And so I started using that for most everything that I do. It's just very tidy looking. And I don't have to try to figure out how much yarn I need. That's the thing I don't like about the long tail cast on, is I always end up with this. And with the long tail cast on, I end up with these big spaces in between my stitches. So I don't care for it. If I can avoid it, I avoid it. But it's the one we all seem to learn when we first learn. That's interesting. I'm gonna have to do some research and see if I can find a crochet cast on. That's funny. Used to use the cable cast on, rarely use the long tail. Yeah, I think the long tail is what everybody teaches us at the beginning. And gosh, what was it? When I took that sock class, she taught us a different cast on. I want to say she called it a German cast on. It had a nice stretch to it. And that's why she said, oh, thank you, Cheryl. Miss Cheryl's been doing private videos for me, helping me fix my problems. We're going to get her trained up in doing these videos. And she's going to start popping videos out for the whole world to see again. Yeah, that'd be great. So I will find, because again, I cannot remember how to do a cast off. So I will find a basic cast off video and I will attach it to the next video. And I will put a couple of simple cast on videos and attach them in the instructions also. And so if you guys don't have a video that if you don't have a cast on or cast off that you already use, they will be in the description box and they will be pinned. Italian. That's the one I did. The Italian cast on. There's a million places to go. You do you. You use whatever you guys want to use, whatever's easiest for you. The boot camp, yeah. I just sent her boot camp to a friend of mine. Okay, I did want to cover a couple of things. When I was calendaring out the weeks on this, I'm like, well, this isn't working out to 30 weeks. She says this is a 30-week thing. Every 3 weeks, she skips a week, or I guess every 4th week is skipped. So when yesterday, I was so tired, but last night I went and looked at, so she does it, she's got a blog, and then in her Ravelry, it's not a blog, but it's like a blog in her Ravelry. And so there was a blog of her crochet along, and I finally found she talked about it. So every 4th week, they skipped a week. And it was because there was some big event that happened every 4th week. But what she said was, this is the week to catch up. And especially as it got more, I don't want to say hard, but they will get harder. But as they got more difficult, as the stitches got more, let's say, interesting, as the stitches get more interesting, it gave people a chance to catch up with the stitch work, catch up with the blocking and the putting together and the finishing. And as new people, if new people join in, it gave them a chance to catch up too. I know myself. I know we have a lot going on, and I like the idea of having a built-in week to catch up. I know that I've done crochet alongs before, and I often, always insert the word always, get behind. And once I get behind, I feel I can never catch up. So if we follow along the exact schedule that she already has built into this thing, and let me just pop in to the schedule here that she already has built into this thing. Thank you, Cheryl, for putting that in there. So those of you that have popped in, you see her little doohickey there. And if you go right, everything is right here. Everything is right here. And she uses that beautiful Cascade 220 Superwash. It's a beautiful yarn. And I went to my local yarn store. It isn't expensive. It runs about $12 a skein. But if you follow her, where is, oh, this went right to the 1st week pattern. I want to go to, eek, how do I get back to, this took me to week 4. Anthology Blanket. Thank you. Come on. Mattress stitch. Weave in your ends. Blocking. Long tail cast on. Oh, bind off. There's a thing about the bind off right here. At your borders. Here we go. Okay, I got the schedule. Okay, so if we follow along her exact schedule that she originally created back in 2016, it follows, and following it on Sundays like this, like we're doing here, it's every 3 weeks. So today's the 7th, not counting January. So January, it's 4 weeks because we've got the 7th, which is today, getting started. And then 14, 21, 28. And then we would skip the first Sunday in every month as a catch-up. And the bind off she has is one you use most. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Hi, Wilma. Thank you for joining in. So I like that idea. I have no problem popping in here, visiting, seeing how everybody is doing, chatting, showing off our work, but not doing a block. Otherwise, we would have to readjust the entire schedule that she's already got set up. And I think that'll throw people off. I really like the idea of a catch-up week. Because again, it's going to get trickier. The farther in we get, the trickier these are going to get. And as I was reading along, Sunday is your knitting day. Sunday is my knitting day. Yes. And it just happens that at my knitting store, Sunday is knitting. What am I trying to say? Knitting lesson day. So if I need to pop in and talk to the knitting teacher, hey, what have I done wrong here? I can do that as well to figure out a problem. So it sounds like we're all in agreement to just stick with the exact schedule that she's got listed here. And then we'll use that 4th week as just kind of we'll just use it as a chit chat week and a catch up week and talk about any problems that we've got going on, showing off our work, seeing what's going on. Sounds like a plan. So and it looks like the only thing that might, and I don't think it did, because it seems like I already was going through my calendar and it was calendaring up correctly. And I'll double check that this week. And I may have stopped calendaring when I went, hey, this isn't looking right. Because this is a leap year week. But I don't think it threw it off. So worst case, the date doesn't work exactly right, but it'll only be off by 1 day if it doesn't. But I'll calendar that up. I bought a special calendar, a little purse calendar to throw that in my purse just to put that up there. Oh my goodness. That's hilarious, Cheryl. So 2016 was a leap year too. One of my daughters is a leap year baby, so she gets to this year. Isn't that funny? Well, then it should work out just exactly right. So if that's the case, this will end in October. October 13th, we'll be doing, and they're going to teach us how to pick up stitches so we can do the border. Interesting. Now and the fun thing about this having been done before is there was a couple of times where there was a couple of problems because I read through every comment on that thing. I didn't get to bed until late last night because I was reading through all the comments in the original, from the original crochet along. And there were a couple of patterns that had a couple mistakes in it. So those have gotten corrected. And there was a couple of times where people had a little bit of problem understanding because of asterisks, because of that kind of thing. And the one thing I did hear comments on was to make sure that you pay close attention to how many stitches you need to cast on, because it isn't the same every time. So sometimes it's 32, sometimes it's 33. So be really aware of that. And, as always, you got to pay attention to your instructions. And I'm really bad. I get in a hurry and I don't read my instructions real careful. There's a couple of times where a chart would have helped. Like there's one time where we're doing a diamond and a chart would have been nice, but there's not a chart in this. So you're going to have to be real careful in reading your rows. And in those situations, if you've got something where you can, block each row as you go along, that kind of thing. But, we'll play that by ear when we get to it. I'm super excited about this. I hope you guys are excited too. I thought we were going to be knitting a little bit today, but we did have quite a bit to go over. So every week you saw my funny picture. And I like to have funny pictures. I think pictures of knitting is nice, but I do think it kind of gets lost in the shuffle. And I think a funny picture sometimes. Oh, hi, Linda. I was just talking about you. I think a funny picture is kind of eye-catching sometimes. So for now, anyway, I'm going to keep that funny picture up there. The title will have the week number each week, what we're in. The link is in the description box to the blanket that we're doing. It's the undergroundcrafter.com anthology blanket. It's a sampler blanket, and we start next week. It's a 6-inch square. Thank you, Mary. We're doing a 6-inch square. And each week we're going to connect it. We're going to block it, connect it, and weave in our one. I guess there would be 2 ends. So one at the beginning, one at the bottom, one at the top, one at the bottom. So that when we're done, we don't have a big old stack of squares to mess with. So we'll have each month, we'll have 3 squares and then a catch-up week. We'll still have a video during catch-up week, but that video, in fact, I will call that video January catch-up, February catch-up, whatever, just so we can visit, talk about any problems, see where we're at. Anybody that wants to join in, well, they'll have a chance to get caught up and see how it's going. I'm super excited about this. Is there any questions at this point? Yeah, Miss Linda, I was telling everybody how I struggle with the long tail cast on and that you taught me to do the knit cast on. And I like that. And I use that for this. And that's the one that I'm going to be using. But you guys use any cast on that works for you. Miss Cheryl has talked to us about the crochet cast on, which she's really piqued my interest with that. I have never heard about that before. So some of the stitches we're going to be learning: bamboo poles, the mini dots, a purled ladder, diagonal broken rib, ridge stitch, garter zigzag, single basket weave, tiny triangles. It just really sounds pretty. I'm doing 3 colors plus a border. My border is going to be different. You can use 1 color. You can use 2 colors. Yeah, I really like the, I like your knit cast on, Linda, because it's very tidy looking. It's very nice looking. And it's so easy to do. Of course, I still have to watch a video every time I do it because I can never remember how to do the cast on and I can never remember how to do the cast off. I have to watch a video every time in order to do them. But, ooh, this one looks tricky. A double Andalusian stitch square. We're going to learn so many cool things during this process. I'm so excited. And I'm also excited about the fact that this isn't something that seems like it's not super fast. Super fast. There's so many. Yeah, it looks nice and neat. I hope you'll join us, Linda. I know you've got a lot on your plate. And just so you guys know, on top of all of this, I'm also, you guys know I've got a knitting lesson this afternoon because I have promised Mister year after year. When he bought me this knitting machine, my Addie, we thought I was going to be able to make him socks with it. No, it's not happening. So we're back to going to a knitting class. I'm starting a knitting class this afternoon. And I talked to the lady and I told her my goal is socks. And you're right. You would think, Cheryl, you would think. So my goal is socks, and I'm going to start this afternoon with a tube sock. And so she's going to try to teach me how to do the magic loop. So we're going to do a tube sock with the magic loop. I had to be really dang good with the stockinette by the time this is done, right? Tube stock and stockinette. And then we're going to, so probably that'll only take me a couple, week or two. And then we're going to start another sock. So we're going to be doing this and a sock. I am going to be doing nothing but knitting over the next couple of months. I think my poor crocheting is going to be gone by the wayside for a couple of months anyway. But, and the whip I'm working on is a knit project. I think I need to pull a crochet whip so I don't forget how to crochet. Right, Cheryl? But, yeah, boy, I am definitely going to get my knitting hands are definitely going to be getting a workout. So that's what's going on in my world. We're going to be casting on, casting off, going to learn how to block this. I don't think the knit blocking is going to be easy. And we're going to be learning some nifty, cool squares. So those of you, this week, your homework is pull your yarn, and I never tell people to do a gauge square, but this is a good idea because you really need to get a feel for how your yarn is going to work up to get your 6-inch square. Take a look at her instructions. I print them off because I can follow on the phone, but I like the idea of being able to mark things off. This one is pure stockinette, and I can remember now, stockinette is back and forth, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl. We're going to do a really nice border stitch, top and bottom, and side and side. You're casting on 32. And so it's just the repeat to do your stockinette. You repeat rows 1 and 2 until your square measures 5.5 inches. This part, your stockinette part, and then you go back and do your border. Yep. fasten off with a long tail of about 3 inches for seaming, because you're gonna sew this together so you don't have a bunch of blocks left over. Oh, Marie, that's her name. I printed out I printed out January. I've got the sand stitch, the seed stitch, and the mistake rib, because I kind of wanted to see what I was working with. And you don't have to print everything out, just, just the little pattern part. Yeah, so I've got January's all printed out, ready to go, because I wanted to see what I was going to be working with. And so that's your homework for this week. Get your stockinette done, and that's what I thought too, that 3 inches was going to be too short. Somebody told me 3 times the width of your finished project. When I was getting ready to go on my cruise, and I was going to be knitting something, and they told me 3 times. Oh, that was for my cast off. I needed 3 because I was afraid I was going to run out of yarn, and they said I needed 3. Is that right? I needed 3 times in case I ran out of yarn. See, I can't even remember now. Yeah, 3 times the width for my cast off. Maybe it was you that told me. So if you're running short on yarn, 3 times this. So boom, boom, boom. That's how much yarn you need for your cast off. That's the other thing I want to do throughout this process, is little tips and tricks like that for just little doodads like that. I would never in a million years have known that. And, I'm used to playing yarn chicken with crochet, and I know how to get enough to get to the end. Well, I would never, ever have thought about needing enough yarn left over for a cast off. So those of you who are baby knitters, there's some little things like that I'll be letting you guys know that I'm learning from you guys. Those of you that are old and seasoned knitters, let me know those things, because I'm starting a knitting notebook of tips that I need to know. That's important information that those of us who are baby knitters, and it sounds like several of us in here are kind of baby knitters. So yeah, we need 3 times the width of our project in yarn to do the cast off. Because we're literally knitting that last row as a cast off. And 3 times for the seam. All right. Good to know. Good to know. Because I would not have thought about that. Great information. And there's a thing about, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. But because this isn't much of a seam to worry about putting in, hiding your seams. But there's a way to do that when you're knitting too. Hiding this little bit of a seam. We'll talk about that at a later date. Okay, we're just over an hour. I don't want these to drag on as much as I like to sit and talk, because I think a lot of people are going to be watching replays. I super am excited about replays on this. I know there's some people that, like Miss Doris, who have not learned to knit yet, but want to do this later on. And thank you guys so much for joining in. Even if you decide not to do this project, I hope you'll pop in and visit with us. If you have any questions, you can pop me an email and I'll do my best. Let me put my email address up here real quick. That's my email address. And I'll take this banner down because it's annoying to have one running while you are trying to look at something. Boom. That's my email address. You can send me an email and I'm happy. I check it all the time. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. You can also catch me every Monday night at 4:30 Pacific. We play bingo and I'm chatting in there. It's free bingo. If you aren't aware of bingo, jump in. We play bingo every Monday night. It's free and we give away prizes. Every Wednesday, we have Rad Girls Live where we just sit and chit chat. And now, every Sunday morning, 7 a.m. Pacific, we're going to have this hour-long underground crafter knit along. And forgive me if I say crochet along, because this knitting thing, this is new. Knit along. Knit along. Yes, I hope so. I know you've got a ton of projects, but I hope you'll just pop in and visit and listen and maybe, share some of your knowledge with us. That is always great too. And you and I have talked about this before, Linda. This is such an important craft to share and pass on. The knitting, the crocheting, all of the yarn arts are so important to share and pass on. And the only way it happens is in formats where people like you can share the information with people like us that don't know what we're doing. And this is absolutely a project that I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea. And this is a learn as you go. This is a learn as we go. Right here, this square, this stockinette stitch square is the limits of my abilities right now. And I am going to be learning each and every week along with a lot of the other folks in here. And I feel blessed and thrilled that some of the folks that have joined me in here today know what they're doing and are going to be able to help me as I muddle through this project. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. All right. We'll see you guys next week. And I hope to see some of you guys at Bingo on Monday. Bye-bye. Thank you, Fibers, for popping in. Oh, and thanks for the thumbs up. I forgot about that. I'm not even thinking about that stuff. My focus is on this. Bye-bye.